At She Can, we tell women's stories to be role models for others by telling our stories, showing our journeys, and telling people how we got to where we are today. We are really showing a roadmap and showing others how things can be done. Our conversations are vulnerable and often speak about challenging subjects. And I really want to welcome Chris Tuck today. Chris, welcome to She Can. I'm very grateful for you to tell your story. You're a trauma-informed women's health, wellness, and fitness coach. You're a public speaker, and you're the author of Breaking the Cycle, which is a handbook about overcoming abuse. You're also the founder of a charity called Survivors of Abuse, where you work with adult survivors to transform their lives. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
100%. So I was brought up in three different households, so variations of mum, dad, stepmum, and stepdad. Their relationships were all domestic violence related, so I witnessed and experienced all of that kind of violence, but also the hypervigilance of trying to stay safe while all of that dysfunction and chaos was going on around me and my siblings. So there is a lot of impact just by living in those different environments. But added onto that was then the mental, the physical, and the sexual abuse that I suffered personally as a child in those households and outside of the family home. So there is a lot of shame, a lot of low self-worth and low self-esteem, and a lot of you're not good enough associated with all of that because of those experiences. And it's the trauma impact from going through all of that that lives with victims and survivors on a day-to-day basis, but often for their whole lives or for episodes of their lives. So I had a breakdown when I was 28, when I had my first child. That's what triggered my mental decline. I call it my breakthrough rather than a breakdown, but most people will recognize it as a not being optimal in your health and your wellness, and just feeling completely discombobulated from life and not really understanding why you're suffering the way you are and why you're suffering what you are suffering. And cut a long story short, it all linked back to the trauma of the impact from the abuse that I'd seen and suffered from personally. I then went on a journey of discovery about trauma, its impact on mental health, its impact on physical health, its impact on all areas of the victim and survivor's life. And at that time, one of my coping mechanisms was fitness. Another coping mechanism was keep busy. Another coping mechanism was put this mask on, show that side of your mask to the world, and you'll be okay. Well, it's okay until it's not. Life unravels, doesn't it? And
It
when
does.
I linked it all back to that, I then became more aware of what trauma is, its impact, and what I could do about it to help myself, to help my family members. And then I had an overwhelming feeling about sharing my story with the wider world. I don't know why, I don't know where it come from, but I was just sick and tired of living in silence, living an inauthentic life,
Mm.
and having to justify me, my feelings, and my actions to anybody and everybody. So I just thought, you know what, the easiest way to tackle this is just to write a book. And I don't know if you can see it up there, but it's on my bookshelf there.
Yeah.
So through the eyes of a child was my autobiography that I wrote for me and my family, and they all contributed. My two brothers and my sister contributed a chapter to that book to share how what we'd gone through as children and young people had impacted them, not only as a young self, a child and young person, but into adulthood, and how it impacted their lives as parents as well. So it's like we share everything, we don't hold anything back. And then on my journey of health, well-being and recovery, I then wrote a health and wellness book, as you spoke about in the introduction, that helps individuals to overcome or acknowledge the impact on them, and how do they go from a place of being held back because of it, or from a place of self-destruction and self-sabotage.
Mm,
How can they actively um, live their life authentically, but also in a healthier way that wasn't harmful to them? Because as victims and survivors of adverse childhood experiences such as abuse, as I've described, you often think you're not worthy enough, and you hold all of that shame and that guilt that doesn't belong to you. You then are living a life which is often uh, coping mechanisms are addictions like alcohol, like food, like exercise, like sex, whatever it is you default to, it's often harmful to you, it's self-sabotaging. So I was thinking, how can we come out feeling better about what we've gone through? Acknowledging that it's happened, acknowledging that it doesn't have to define the rest of your life, but also that the abuse is not you, it's something that's happened to you, but
mm.
everything that surrounds it doesn't belong to you. So how can we actually put all of that down? How can we actively look after ourselves, love ourselves, nurture ourselves, and move forward to living a life to our full potential? So that's what that book was all about, the recovery book. And that is what Survivors of Abuse, the charity, is all about as well. It's about looking at how the abuse affects your brain as you develop, how your triggers and your coping mechanisms are helping or harming, and what you can do to change that. So there's 7 pillars of health that I talk about and you spoke about. In the main, it's mindset, nutrition, fitness, sleep, hormones, alignment, how we move or not, and also stress management. So it's the whole package. It's looking at you as an individual in a holistic way, and how can you adopt healthier habits that will help you move forward rather than keep you back or stuck. Does that make sense?
Yes, it sounds really incredible, Chris. And I'm so thankful for your level of service and for realizing that by talking up and telling your story, you are making a powerful impact in helping others. Because I think when we bring people who have experienced any kind of abuse or violence, and policymakers and businesses and different people together, then real change happens. So I think it's really vitally important that we all speak up more about all of the things that pertain to our challenges or struggles or whatever we've experienced in life to bring about change. So I'm very grateful that you are leading this life where you basically turned these terrible things that happened to you as a child, and you've turned it into your purpose where you're supporting others that might be experiencing similar things. Chris, so tell us a little bit more. So you will get a client and you will then identify which of those things is important for them. So whether that is fitness or nutrition, or you always work with all of these pillars.
So for me, I have like a community fitness business where people will just come and do fitness. Okay. And then I have my charity work where I created an 8-week program that specifically looks at the abuse that we've suffered, how it's impacting the mental and the physical, how we're living our lives, and what we need to do using the 7 pillars to change that, so that we're living a life that is to our true potential.
Yeah.
So we can feel happier, so we can feel healthier, so we can feel more at peace. Yeah. So that's So they're two different sides, but they're often one and the same coin. And I say that because often the people that come to me through my community classes have also gone through some adverse childhood experiences, whether it be abuse or whether it be someone that's got a mental health illness in their family, someone's gone to prison in their family, someone's died. So whatever the trauma is, it can lead to a life of dysfunction. It can lead to a life of disordered eating, for example, or lead to a life of addiction. So there's a trauma somewhere in that person's life, and it's just tapping into that, understanding how it's impacted them, understand how they're living their life. And if they say they want a certain goal, whether it be peace, whether it be to lose 5 stone, whether it to be to get fitter and healthier, it's like understanding that that goal is being hindered by past experiences and the way they currently live their life and what needs to change to get them from A to Z.
Yeah. Yeah. You said that
That's it
beautifully.
in a nutshell, really, to be
Yeah. Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. That sound makes a lot of sense. Chris, so what would you say are the top qualities you have that make you good at delivering all of these visions, ideas, the businesses, the charity, all the things that you do in your life to help others?
I think it comes down to being authentic and actually sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly, to be
Mhm.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sharing everything. When life is good, it's good. When it's bad, it's bad. And when it's 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 bad. Yeah. So we share everything. Sorry, I don't like swearing professionally. I swear a lot in my personal life, but publicly I don't like swearing. So but when it is not great, you're literally on your knees, that you share that as well. But you don't just share the pain, you share the solution of what works for you, what's worked for other people, so that people listening or watching can tap into something, not just the illness or what is holding you back. Yes, understand that, but understand there's always hope. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's what I bring to everything. So I use my lived experiences, as I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to make people understand, to raise awareness, to educate, but then also to create the change that's needed. Because without that, I don't think you're adding value to what you're trying to share with people. I
Mm,
think that also there's a lot of negativity in this world.
yeah.
Yeah. And adding to that without hope and a solution or various ways of being able to deal with stuff, I don't think adds a lot. It can bring you and everybody around you down further, whereas we've got to create a way forwards and we've got to show that change can happen, even if it's a small step.
Yeah, and Chris, I think you said that so beautifully, and you really show it, right? You are someone who has turned that around, and you are also that hope that whoever comes through your life will see, and this is why the telling our stories is so powerful. Chris, so tell me what you are most proud of to date.
So I think it is having the courage to step up and share what I'd been through, because I had so many worries and concerns about if I shared what had happened to me, if I shared the truth behind the mask, that nobody would like me and everybody would think I'm bad, because that's how you feel. Um, and the exact happened, the opposite, exact opposite happened. Lots of people actually got behind me and just said, "You're brave, you're this, thank you. I've gone through and I've not been able to speak about it, but now you've spoken about it, it enables me to step up and speak about it." I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying it opened the door a little bit, a little crack, a little bit of light came through that door for other people when they listened to you.
Yeah.
And I did the same before I came out and felt safe to come out about all of this. I looked around to see what other stories were out there. So A Boy Called It, for example, David Pelser, well known abuse experience. And I read all of his books. I read Flowers in the Attic. I did a lot of reading, but no one sort of like shared about the trauma impact. No one sort of like shared how it actually could obliterate your whole life in all areas of your life. And no one shared a pathway for me when I was looking as to what you could do to help yourself to heal. So I am proud that I was able to bring all of my learning from being a health and wellness coach to the fore and write a book to share with anybody and everybody that wanted to access it at a reasonable price that they could afford, which then just gets reinvested into the charity. So I'm proud of that whole cycle, to be fair.
Yeah, no, that is amazing. Chris, so tell us, give us your top tips of how people can break those cycles of abuse or violence or mental health struggles or any type of trauma that they might have experienced and therefore are now challenged.
So for me, it's all about understanding what's happened to you is not your fault ever. Acknowledging what has happened to you, because a lot of individuals don't even understand that what they've gone through is abuse. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this has happened. This is how I feel. This is how it's impacted me. And now I'm going to find the courage to reach out to a charity, for example, that works within the realm of what it is you've suffered, and reach out and get the help and support that you need. So for example, someone might have gone through something that's harmed them and they're very angry about it. Yeah. They are then angry at everybody. They might hit with their fist, for example. It is your responsibility as an adult to get the help you need to deal with the anger management so that you don't harm other people. So I'm not victim blaming here. What I'm saying is something's happened to you, not your fault. But what you're feeling is not only harming you, it's potentially harming others if it is hitting out that you're doing. Okay. So that needs to be addressed, because we don't want these cycles of abuse carrying on. So we have to identify what it is we are doing that is helpful or harmful. And if it's harmful, we need to take responsibility for that, the ability to respond differently. Yeah, that's how we break cycles. We have the ability to respond differently. So it's our responsibility to get help and support for whatever is causing us harm, whether it be an addiction of some kind, or we're causing harm to other people. Even if we don't mean it, it's not intentional, any of that. But we have a responsibility as an adult to deal with that.
Yeah.
Does that
Chris,
make sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking there are a lot of people who have suffered abuse, whether that's sexual abuse,
Mm-hmm.
on the hands of someone, and they are often not believed, right? We still
Yes.
live in 2024 in a
Mm-hmm.
society where men and women will not
Yes.
believe women's experiences, will minimize them, and often women feel they don't have a choice because speaking out is not going to serve them.
No, I hear you. And it is still a cultural problem. And there needs to be a cultural shift in this. And that is one of the things that, through my work with the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse that I was on for 8 years, we saw the harm of not being believed, what harm it causes to the individual and their recovery. So it's really important, especially as an adult, that we believe children and young people when they come forward and speak about what's happened to them. And it's equally as important that we listen to adults that have also going through this kind of adverse experience, that we believe them as well. We believe everybody until we have the evidence that proves that we shouldn't believe them. Does
Otherwise,
that make sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, it shouldn't always be about you have to prove it, prove it, prove it. Of course you do, but right from the outset, yeah, especially if you're going through the criminal justice system, yeah, it might not even get to court. So the fact that someone's believed me at the point of speaking out, disclosure in official circles, the fact that someone's believed me, if it doesn't go any further, that's already going to help me in my recovery because
mm,
someone's believed me. It's
mm,
not their fault that it's not got through to a court case. But the fact that you've believed me when I've said this has happened to me, that is enough for many individuals to start their healing journey.
yeah.
And not being believed can really wreck a healing journey. It can send someone spiraling and it can even end people's lives.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's really paramount that we make this part of sex education in schools, ethics talks at schools, invite in survivors of abuse of any kind for children to understand, for everyone to understand where the boundaries lie, and that there will really be consequences, and that people are believed, and that they can speak up for what
Yeah.
happen to them, to bring about change and really break those cycles. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
those people continue potentially doing harmful
Yeah.
things to others. And I think that's really important. And the more I hear of cases, the more I'm slightly despairing, because I
Mm-hmm.
think we are now, in 2024, we can speak about things, but we still haven't moved the needle enough for people often to feel that they can come forwards and they can do something about it. Because if they do, they won't be believed. They're going to lose their friends.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be this victim and people. So I think there is still so much stigma involved.
There is.
And
Yeah.
so I'm very grateful for you to talk about it, Chris. Chris, so what are your plans and goals for the future? What are your next couple of years looking like?
Fighting our government to implement the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse recommendations. So I don't know if you know about it, you probably don't. But the package of recommendations that the ICSA inquiry came up with was having a child protection authority, a child protection minister, and all of these other recommendations like mandatory reporting, one core data set, redress for victims and survivors. So there's 20 big recommendations that if they are implemented as a package, it will change culture, it will better protect children in the future from child sexual abuse and exploitation. But we then need to extrapolate that out and say it's for anyone really to have the response that they need and deserve so that they can recover from the impact of trauma because of the abuse that they've endured. And all of the abuse they've endured is a crime. But ultimately, we don't all get, well, 1% gets a conviction in a court of law. So
Mm,
there are many people, children, young people, and adults that are not getting the criminal justice outcome that they deserve. So they need to be able to have a different way of getting what they need. And it might just be specialist support, it might be a compensation in some way, it may be that they get to speak to their abuser within a safe
mm,
space.
mm.
It's called restorative justice. So whatever the victim and survivor needs, that's what they should be able to access.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen tomorrow, as we know, and it may never happen. But if we work towards it, whatever we achieve has got to be better than what we are giving them today.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, I'm so thankful for this conversation. My last question would be, who are your role models? Who were the people who inspired or motivated or mentored you through to coming forwards, to stepping up, to telling your story, and for bringing change?
So one of my talks I do is the power of one. Each and every one of us just needs that one person in our lives, whether it's just for 5 minutes, 5 years, or 50 years, it doesn't matter. We just need that one person to show that they believe in us, that they believe us, and that we can, as individuals, work towards or achieve whatever it is we want to achieve. Okay. And it could be the dinner lady, it could be the teacher, it could be the next door neighbour, or it could be a friend's mum or dad, whoever. But we just need that power of one. And I had that power of one, that lady, Arwen's mum, and I don't know Arwen's mum's name, but Arwen's mum, who stepped up and helped me when I was 16. And that, I believe, changed the course of my life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Chris. Thank you so much for telling your story today and for talking to me and for being so wonderfully open, authentic, and vulnerable, and therefore giving others that power of one.
Thank you.